Well, hey folks, listen, I wanted to give you a wrap up of my tournament play last week, not to say, hey, look, I won, but I'm actually kind of surprised I won. But what really happened was I went in with low expectations, and that actually helped me out a lot. And so I want to talk about that with you and maybe give you some ideas of how you can plan and prepare for your tournaments, whether it's small little leagues or big tournaments. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you 6 holes from each course that I had some decisions to make when it came to tournament play, and hopefully I'm going to give you some insight that could help you out. Okay, so first things first, whenever you're going into a tournament, whether it's small, big, you need to kind of decide what kind of goals you want for that. Are you going for a win? Are you going to be aggressive? Or are you going to be safe? To be honest, when I went out for this tournament, I was just part of the group that was putting it on with Disc Golf Birmingham, so I wasn't thinking that I was going to win. There were some great players out there that I thought were going to kick my butt, so my goal going into it was just to play well and not to blow up, to play within my game and try to really shoot bogey free. Fortunately, I ended up doing that. Now, I had to scramble a couple times, but I wasn't pushing it. And that's where I've gotten in trouble in the past, where I've tried to really kind of make great shots under pressure. And so you need to realize and think about what you're going to be doing when you're in a tournament, how that pressure is going to affect you. And so I'm going to walk through some of these holes and talk about it, but my goal was not to win. My goal was not to push. Sometimes you may have that goal, so hear me right from the beginning. Your goals may be different than mine, and you've got to decide what they are. I'm showing you how I played this on a conservative level, but you may need to play just flat out because you've got to get some extra strokes or something. So don't think that this is a one-size-fits-all how you should plan for a tournament. I'm giving you something to think about, so at least when you get out there to practice, you have a foundation of thinking, what do I need to do with this? Where do I want to go with this? How do I want to prepare, and how do I want to play for this tournament? Anyway, I hope that helps. A lot of what we want to do before we go to a tournament is have all the questions answered as much as possible so that we can eliminate the chaos and the stress, and we can just play the best game that we can out there. And so that's what this video is. Hopefully it's going to show you some things that you can start to think about and encourage you, and hopefully we'll have a little fun along the way, but it's really kind of a teaching time, and I hope you enjoy it. Hope if you do, you'll like and subscribe, and I hope to see you out on the course. Okay, so this is hole number 2, and it really is a simple yet hard hole. It's got a lot of extreme angles. You've got to throw down here and make a hard turn almost 90 degrees. And so most people will try to throw a stall shot to that tree and didn't let it fall. The problem is when you're uptight, you're tense, it's hard to make that very touchy shot. So I decided to do something to throw with a little more free, a little more power, and I went with just a hard skip shot. Now I also planned for this hole, a birdie would be bonus, but I just didn't want to hurt myself. I just wanted to get an easy 3 on this and not stress out. So I just grabbed my Skippy overstable boss and just came up, and this way I'm just throwing to that middle section there to get one skip and go. If it goes too far or not far enough, it's usually an easy layup for a 3. And so that's all I'm doing on this hole, is just to think, okay, yes, I can get to the basket, but the odds of me getting to the basket when I'm uptight, and anybody else in the field, there's only going to be a few birdies. So there'll be a decent number of birdies, but this is not a make or break hole for getting birdies. So I just don't want to kill myself. So just a little skip shot. I've got a closer target that I can aim for, and I'm just basically throwing for that spot, and I'm not having to think too much about touch, just throw it down there and let it do the work. And so it took a lot of pressure off. I kind of gave myself the expectation of 3 on this is great, and don't have to push too hard, and if you happen to make a birdie, that's great. I actually threw past the basket a little bit and had a upshot that hit the basket, but I wasn't mad because I hit my target of just making a par on this hole. All right, so this next one, I had a great game plan and I almost messed it up because I didn't stick with it. Now this shot, you're going to go up, you see the big rock, you're going to have to do a turnover shot past the rock to the right, and then it's going to carry on. This is a par 4, then your second shot goes straight down that way. And so my game plan was just to take my flippy Valkyrie, you know, I don't have my Minion anymore, I lost it, so this is the replacement one, and just throw it up there and then get up in that grassy area and then throw a nice easy up shot to the basket. Well, I'll show you what happened up there, but I threw it and I just caught that last tree. It was going perfectly. It was going to go right through that gap and it just got knocked down. But I didn't stick with my game plan, and we'll talk about it up there. Okay, so I land right here, which is great because I'm still in the fairway. I'm farther back than I'd like to be, but I'm okay. And my game plan coming into this is just make sure I take my second shot and put it into the grass up there for an easy shot down the lane for the basket. If I get a good drive up to the top of the hill, I can run at the basket for a birdie. But if my shot gets blocked around here, don't go for the hero shot, go for the layup and have an easy shot down the alley. The thing is, I was feeling pretty good and I said, oh, well, I'll just grab my pyro and I'll throw a nice forehand but let it fall back over there. But what do you normally do when you're tight? So I step up and I go to throw it and I pull it over. And there's road over there, there's woods over there. It's kiss of death if you go to the left. You don't want to do that. So all I needed to do was this. Anything like that would have been fine, but I decided to try to go for it. Now I ripped it over and you'll see what happens when I got up there. Almost cost me. Okay, so now instead of having my disc somewhere in here that's a simple straight shot down the alley, what happens? I almost hit the road. I pulled over, but fortunately it stopped, but unfortunately it stopped right here. That's where I ended up. Now, from this angle, as a matter of fact, I'll show you this angle. So this is my angle. There's just jungle, all these little branches and stuff like that. I have maybe one tricky gap up there if I wanted to push it, but if I miss, it's dropping into the middle of jungle and it's not guaranteed to have an easy shot there. So when you're scrambling, always look for the highest percentage of, in case you mess up, where's it going to be in your best spot. And so I knew I had this open area over here, and everything flowing over that way would be more open than over here. So I grabbed my pig, and all I really had was a flip roller out. And it pretty much ended about like that. I was about 35 feet away. Now, fortunately, I was able to make a long putt, was able to flick in and save the par. But that was where I got out of my game thinking, oh, I can push it a little more, I'm good. And I didn't, because there's a tournament factor to everything where you're a little bit tighter, a little bit more hesitant, you're not as loose. And so that's why I think you really need to set up a game plan and try to stick with it at all costs, so that you know if you messed up, at least you stuck with your game plan. Whereas if I had gotten a bogey here, I would have been mad because I knew better and I still didn't do it right. Hope that makes sense. Okay, here's another hole that almost bit me because I changed my strategy on the tee pad. And I know you've done this before. You see somebody else throw a shot and you go, oh, let me try that instead, when I already had a game plan, but I liked what the other guy did. Now this hole is a tricky hole. The basket's tucked back over there. And it really is another one of these that birdies is so hard. So you need to set expectations. And that's one of the things I keep wanting to keep wanting to drive home is figure out where the scoreable holes are and figure out where the danger holes are and figure out your game and how you play best. And then have reasonable expectations about what you can and will score during a tournament. I wrote this off as a 3 right from the beginning because if I got lucky and made it around there, it's a bonus birdie. But I'm not going to be upset with a 3, and most of the field is going to get at least a 3. So all I was going to do is just take my little flippy putter and just throw it right to that hill and then go over because the basket's not the, oops, sorry. Throw it down there to the hill, and then from there just a nice easy shot over. And if it does a little flip around the corner a little bit, that's good for an easier layup. And so that's all I should have done. But really, it's just a simple shot right down the middle. I don't have to do much. I don't have to work anything. I just throw a shot down the middle. But I saw a guy step with a forehand, and he made a good shot around. And so I decided I was going to get my deflector. I was going to do the same thing. I was just going to punch something out here and crank it around the corner. Now watch, I'll throw it this time, I'll go right around the corner, but that's not what happened when I did it last time. Yeah, came out early, hit a tree, ricocheted over there, and I was stuck up on the side of the hill. So I just tried to do too much. I got fancy, and I kept, you know, one of the things that catches us is when we go, oh no, you can do it, go ahead. Sometimes that pays off, but you need to know yourself and how often that pays off. Do a cost analysis of how many times you think, oh, I'll change it up and I'll do something different, and it works out. A lot of times I bet it doesn't. So if you stick with your game plan, I think you're gonna be more successful down the road. All right, so here's where I landed. I am literally 80 feet from the tee pad. Not the best shot. I got this little stuff here. I don't think this was in my way, so that must have been right about here. But so now I've got this shot down here. The good news is there's that nice bank that you can just throw into the bank and stop it. The problem is when you're playing tournaments, you tend to be juiced up a little bit. And I found my misses, I was going long. I was just throwing a little bit extra. I was putting a little too much on it. And so what happened here is I threw it almost a perfect shot to the basket. It took one hop on the top and curled around the side and ended up about 25 feet to the right. Now, if you saw on the flyover or the walkthrough, there's water OB just behind the basket, and I thought I had pooped myself there. But fortunately, it stayed up and I was able to make the putt back across. But you've also got to remember, where are your mistakes? Am I pumped up a little bit? Am I going to throw it a little bit harder? So when you get up here, you go, all right, I'm going to miss. If I miss, I'm going to miss low. So you intentionally throw it and burn it into the ground a little bit so that even if you juice it up a little bit, it's going to slide in there. So anyway, take in consideration what your mistakes are, where you tend to mess up, and how you're feeling. Are you pumped up? Are you lazy or blah or whatever? And realize that's probably going to have a factor in how you throw that shot, especially up shots. Those are the touchy ones. All right, now this hole was a new hole for me as far as I've only played to the short placement, and this turned into a par 4 long placement. And I tried a lot of different shots to see how far, because it's not that long, it's 3 something up to the basket. So I'm like, yeah, you can go for it. The problem I found is with this tightness and these trees, going for it, most every time except for one got lucky. Most every time they didn't get lucky. They hit trees and got knocked off the alleyways, the fairways, and then I'm scrambling through the trees. And I know the short shot. It's just a simple putter shot, berg right around the corner, land by the basket. At that spot is ideal for then going up the next fairway. So I said, okay, this kind of reminds me of hole 8 at Inverness. I'm just throwing to the short basket. I know that shot. It's an easy shot. It's a stress-free shot. And then I'm going to make the upshot from there. I'm going to concede an eagle for hopefully a birdie. And it takes some of the stress off. Because yes, I could possibly get there if I just ripped it. But the odds are way low. And in tournament play, you want to minimize the chaos, minimize the stress. So I knew it was also the second hole we played, because we started on hole number 9. So I knew I was still going to be tense. So I'm just going to come up and I just simply throw down the middle and land right by the basket, by the collar. I was only about a foot away from the collar, and that's exactly what I wanted. Stress-free, and then I got an upshot. All right, so here's where I landed. I'm right in line with the fairway up. The basket's up there around that tree. Anything to the right or left, you're dealing with all these little trees that can just ruin your day. So I knew this was a great place to land, and I'm used to throwing in this area. I haven't played a lot, but this is where the basket normally is, so I was comfortable here. And now I'd already practiced from here several times throwing a forehand. It was actually with my pyro, not the deflector, because the deflector's a little too stable for this. It's just a shot up the gut towards the basket. And the nice thing is, because I'm throwing the forehand, my tendency is to pull over a little bit left. So the spin of the disc, I actually clipped a little bit of that one last tree over there, but it just barely touched it, kicked it right back to the basket. And so that's some of your tournament prep, thinking for where you're going to land, how you're going to scramble, where are your strengths. My strengths are my upshot and my approach game usually, so I'm comfortable here. Whereas if I was over there or back in there, I would be scrambling and not as comfortable. Try to be as comfortable so you can make less mistakes, hopefully. So there you go. All right, here's an interesting one. Hole 15, it is a par 4, but it's a short par 4, and it is actually reachable if you get the right shot. And I'll show you this in a minute. But I chose to go with the Berg, actually the Berg X, for my drive and my approach. It's just 2 simple Berg shots up to the basket. I ended up getting a birdie. And the whole thing is yes, I could probably push it and maybe get an eagle. But if you sit around after a round and talk to everybody, how many people you say, oh man, I kicked off a tree, went OB in the road to the left, or I kicked a tree, went OB to the right, or I hit first available, and then I had to scramble and I got a 5, I got a 6. You know, the scores actually start adding up pretty quick out here because of these trees and the ricochet potential, especially that road. So yes, I could push it and throw out here. But here's the thing, because of the backhand, with the spin, if I catch a tree with that power, it's almost automatically going to lift and pull it into the road. The slope of the ground's going to carry it that way. So I'm playing roulette that I can get through all that and not do anything. Now Tim Keith, who we were playing together with, he's a lefty and this is his course. And so he just punched it right up the middle and he made the eagle, and it was phenomenal. It was a great shot. He made about a 50-foot putt. But he's got a different spin with his left-handed shot, and he can take that alley and just have everything be fighting back away from the road. So you got to consider your skill set, the spin of the disc, the obstacles, the OB, everything, and also how you're going to feel in a tournament. And I knew, once again, I just knew, okay, I'm going to be more at ease if I just come along and I just take the disc and I just throw it to the short basket. And then we play from there. I'm going to show you the set of trees you would have to get to if you went right side and tried to rip it down there like a lot of people did. So this is a landing zone. Even earlier, a little bit earlier, is a good place to be. This is the widest area that you can land in and be safe, and now you've got this shot here. I should have said you could throw a forehand if you've got a good enough touch forehand to get through that small gap, because that's going to have that same spin. You're going to be fighting back away from the road over here. But that's why when I had this shot, I want to go with a forehand. Anything up and down here, I want to go with a forehand so that I can use it fighting back from the road to give me more security so that I can go towards the basket. So now I'm just going to throw this basically kind of at the tree and let it fall back to the basket and hopefully never even mess with the road. I kind of stiff-armed that one. Fortunately, I threw it a lot better when I was actually playing the tournament. But so it's just a simple shot here and then a stress-free shot here. Let me show you these trees over here. This is what, if you decide to go long right side with the backhand, right hand backhand, yes, you can fight your way through, but look at what you got to do. Even if you get to this basket area here, then you've got this one little gap here, and then what? It's really got to get lucky. And if you've got any kind of speed or juice still coming through here, chances are you're going to catch one of these trees and then just bounce off to the road. Now granted, you're in the road lying 3 to the basket, so you can still get a par or make a long putt for a birdie, but I just think let's play smarter and safer, especially when we're playing a tournament, unless you really need the points, and then you go for it. Okay, hole 16 was another interesting one because you've got OB down the right, but you've got this Mando right before the basket to keep people from throwing a hyzer. But so what that means is that you've got to send something out here, but then bring it back to the basket and stop it before it gets to the road. And with those guardian trees, it gets a little tricky. I saw so many people losing strokes because of missing the Mando or having it trickle out OB because you're throwing usually a forehand that's wanting to carry and roll that way. And so what I decided, instead of trying to throw something straight that, especially it was windy that day, could flip up and miss the Mando, or because of the elevation, a lot of times they'll just carry extra long and you end up sailing way past, and I've gone out of bounds in the back. I went with the deflector, and the whole thinking was, even if I crank over on it and shoot it, it's going to want to fight back. And if I hit these early trees, I still haven't missed the Mando, so I'm okay for the scramble. But if I get a good enough shot, I can just hook it around and drop it right there near the basket. Plus, it's so stable that hopefully it will cut off and not keep carrying out to the OB. And unfortunately, I almost grounded it. It just skimmed above the top of the ground and went to the back of the basket. I was 30 feet past it and just went right through the chains. It was a little bit right, and it was a bad putt on my part, but drop in 3, so I'm not mad at all. So oftentimes you got to think of where your miss is going to be and how you can eliminate as many chances for you to screw up. Because there's certain holes that are just waiting to crank up extra strokes on your scorecard. So this is extra overstable. Let it go down and then just let it fight back. Yep, almost the same spot. So there you go. All right, so hole 5 was, if we're going in order of starting on hole 1, hole 5 is the first one where you really kind of have to make a choice of how you want to play it. With this position, it's straight ahead, but it's down by the OB sidewalk, and anything right in that privet stuff is just death. So my natural inclination is to throw a backhand, a little flippy something that goes around, but these trees make it interesting. If you catch these trees early, you really have to scramble them. And because the ground is sloping down, a missed shot, if you don't put enough on it, it's just going to fade off and head and go OB. I saw so many people hitting the road, hitting the sidewalk. And what's tough is right before we played, I was just farting around and I grabbed my mid-range and threw the best shot I ever threw just under the basket from here. So this is definitely parkable if you want to risk it. But I said, you know what? This hole is going to eat people's lunch because they're going to miss it and go to the road. I'm going to play this safe. I'm going to make sure I miss the right, but I'm also going to throw a forehand to make sure that it falls back and avoids the OB. And so I just stepped up and I used my overstable boss. And this is the other thing I didn't check. I think I had the T-pad. This was a slick pad, and I stepped up and I slipped, but fortunately I pulled it inside and it got around the tree, but because it was stable, it fell off to the right. Whereas if I had thrown a backhand and slipped like that, I know I would have thrown it OB. So I just stepped up. And I'm basically conceding the par on this hole because I'm looking at strokes of what's going to happen on this hole. And as a matter of fact, Tim Keith, who's left-handed, he put it right up. He went past the basket and made a great putt back for a birdie. I'm kind of conceding that because when you start to average things out, I just don't see a lot of people going to get a lot of birdies on this hole. It's kind of a bonus birdie. So yeah, that's it. Okay, let me say one more thing about this hole. One of the reasons why I give up par on this hole and not go for the birdie is because it's a lot different than playing a league or just playing out here. When I'm just playing around, I'll go for it every time. But those missed shots, those strokes because of OB and stuff really start to wear on you. And there's a stress issue going on that you're carrying around all 18 holes. So there's something to be said about playing as stress-free as possible. So having a plan to give up a few holes but not be stressed out is not a bad idea. Yeah. So know your game, know your stress points, and also know your failure points, and try your best to eliminate those. Okay, here's a straightforward hole. It's an island hole. You got to make it inside the rocks for it to be counted in. Otherwise, you got to go to the drop zone, regardless of where it ends up, even if it passes over the rocks. And this is where, having played this in a couple tournaments before, gave me some experience and know how I do on this. I used to just take my birdie and just rip it over there and let it flip up and fly over there until I had a headwind on it one day in a tournament and it just missed the rocks short. What that meant was I was going to have to make sure I really cranked on it to get it there. You don't want to have to crank on it if you don't have to. So I moved up to a mid-range. And my shot normally is just to take this mid-range and just throw it right down the middle. However, what are we talking about during tournament play is our touch and our twitchiness tend to interfere with our being able to throw smooth a lot of times. If we're uptight, we're going to pull it over, we're going to do something a little bit funky. So I wanted to try to eliminate having to think too much and throw a great shot. So I just simply changed out and went with my overstable Thunderbird that I'm just throwing up over the trees. The wind wasn't bad, the trees aren't too high, and I'm just spiking it at the basket. Because then I could almost go into autopilot and just throw a spiky forehand. And even if it caught the tree at the end or whatever, I'm not kicking myself because I almost threw a good shot or I threw a crappy shot. It's just, that's how it goes. I kind of was like, okay, I'm fine if it catches a tree. I'd hate it, but at least I threw the shot I wanted to throw. Whereas a lot of times I've stepped up lately and I just grabbed my vector, which is my normal throw, And see, I just got that a little low, didn't give it quite enough, and it just caught the front of the rocks. See, it's a touchy shot to try to get it up over and then land. Whereas if I just take my Thunderbird, I know, even with this headwind, I know if I just crank it out there, it should fight back right to the basket. Good thing I didn't do that during the tournament. And that's the thing you gotta be willing to accept. Sometimes you're just gonna shank it. Fortunately, I didn't during the tournament, so I was happy with that. But yeah, that's kind of my thinking on this hole. All right, hole 10 is a long par 4, and it is reachable in 2 if you throw 2 really good shots. The problem is all the trees on the right side are OB, and there's a walking path on the left that's OB. And so if you want to rip it, you're going to have to stay in the middle. And the first time I ever played a tournament here, I went OB on the right twice and think I took an 8 on this. And so, yeah, birdie's good, but I'm willing to take a par on this one just to make sure that I'm not doing anything crazy. It's all dependent on my first throw. And I'm throwing my flippy tennis ball, but I'm throwing it with a little extra hyzer. That way, if I mess up, it's just going to carry left and hopefully not carry too far left to OB. But it's going to just put me in those trees, and that's going to be an easy decision for me not to go for the basket from over there. Whereas if I get it just right and pump it out there where I get in the opening, then I'm going to maybe go for the basket. But I still got to cut those trees and take them into consideration on the next shot. So most of the time, I'm probably just going to go, let's not push it and just keep it nice and even. So I just take this guy. And just throw it down there to the little trees. And then I'm willing to look and see what kind of shot I have from there. Okay, so here's where that drive ended up. And you can see the one of the short basket placements right there. That's the medium placement. I'm also a firm believer in practicing throwing your drives, especially if they're long holes like this, that it can be short and long. If you can practice throwing to the short basket just to reinforce, get that muscle memory for that, that's usually not a bad place to aim for your next shot. Well, so this is where ideally I would aim, but even here, if you can see, these little finger trees, these little ninja branches are just everywhere. So I need to go high. This would be a real delicate shot to try to get. I'd have to do something flippy that didn't flip too much to go into the trees in the back to really try to get it to the basket. And so unless I'm out over here, I'm probably not going to go for it. Unless I'm going to push out on this side. Yeah, because it's really not worth it. Unless I really needed some strokes, and then I'd go for it. Now my shot, unfortunately, came over and bled out a little bit farther and was right behind this tree, literally up against the tree here. So I knew that all I could really do was take and punch something through here, hopefully skip off the sidewalk and go back in bounds because the sidewalk's OB. So I grabbed something overstable and just tried to miss that light pole and put it out in the middle. Now the good news is with my forehand air approach shot, I can still give it a semi-run even when I'm kind of laying up with that. And so there were several holes here that I gave it a little bit of a bid, even though I played safe on the approach shot or the second shot or drive or whatever. I was still able to run at some of these baskets from a good distance because of my forehand. So there you go. Okay, hole 13 is an interesting one because the basket's right out there. And here's where you've got to understand your game and your tendencies. I tend to lean on, I have a pretty good straight shot that I can throw, you know, pretty accurately. And so I tend to lean on that. But sometimes you have to adjust and go, what's the smarter play? Because the thing about that is you've got to have the right touch as far as distance-wise. You may throw it right down the middle, but you may throw it too short or too long. There's a lot more touches involved in a straight shot at the basket rather than hyzering in. And this is one of those holes where I can get down there and I'm playing around. I just throw my vector and let it slide on down there to the basket. Or if the basket's over to the left a little bit more, I'll go around this left side here and just a little turnover. But I'm becoming smarter in my old age, hopefully. And I just like, let's just throw a hyzer you're not going to have to be that touchy about it. you have less you have to think about when you're just throwing a natural hyzer than you do when you have to throw a straight shot. Straight shot, you got to get everything lined up perfectly. Whereas a hyzer, you can be off a little bit and it's still going to get pretty close as long as you don't just yank it over, because it's got more room for error. And so on this hole, I normally would step up and I would just try to do an extra touchy shot right down the middle. And see, I pulled that over a little bit, but it's okay. It's not great, but it's okay. But now, before the tournament, I'm like, let me think about this. I'd seen some other people do it, just stepping up and throwing a hyzer with my Thunderbird, sort of like the island hole. Just need to step up, and all I need to do is miss this big field goal. And then let it naturally do the work. Right down to the basket, and I was like 15 feet from it. And that's where you've got to kind of, every time you're getting ready for a tournament, even if you played the holes a million times, think about what's going to be the best for you under stress. I can't repeat that enough. You're under stress during a tournament, so you need to throw the shot that will handle the stress the best. That's the best thing I can tell you. Figure that out. Plan for, you're not going to be having a great day, but how can you still make good shots even when you're kind of like this? All right. Okay, so now we get into the last two holes that are really can make or break your round. Robbie C said these are probably some of the best finishing holes in a tournament just because of how treacherous they can be. And so this is a par 4, the way it's set up now. It's set in the long position. And even if it's in the short position to the right or the left, it's still tricky. And what a lot of people do is they try to get a little something that can get past the tree and up the gap there. But this is such a tight little sneaky place. If you hit early, you're dead. So what I chose to do, and I tried this out several times last time preparing for the tournament, and I was able to get a birdie both times out there. And the key for me was just to take my flippy birdie. Now this is the Berg. I don't have the birdie with me today. And I just throw it, aim it at that tree, and I know it's got enough flip up that it's just going to carry to the right of it. If it catches the bushes just right of that tree where it kind of bumps out a little bit, that's okay because it's thin enough that I can still probably make a shot through those bushes. But one of the things I did this time is I also practiced what happens if I hit the tree or I go to the left, because all my practice before was go to the right. But sometimes you just don't throw a good shot and you're going to end up trailing off to the left because it slopes that way. Anyway, I'm going to show you that in a minute. So all I want to do, I'm coming in, we actually started on hole 9, so this was halfway through, but normally this is the end of your round. So now I don't have my birdie with me, so I'm just going to throw one, and I'm aiming at that tree. Even if I hit the tree, I could step around it and still get a shot. So the tree is my marker. And that's very similar to what happened in the tournament. I went to the left instead of the right, and so it faded down the hill just enough where I could not get around the corner going to the right. So I'll show you what I had to do down there. Okay, so what makes it so treacherous is anything that gets off the fairway is going to get knocked into this tough wooded stuff. I don't know what it's called, privets and all kinds of stuff. And it's just all these little things that make it so impossible to get a clean shot. Even your swing a lot of times is just inhibited by these bushes, and you go deep just 6 feet and you've got no shot, so all you can do is throw it back out into the fairway, and it's on both sides. Now it's gotten thinned up a little bit just because of play and it's winter and stuff like this, but anything that hits these little guys tends to just throw deeper into the woods. It makes it really tough to get a good score out here. So you're wanting to definitely focus on just getting down the middle and staying in the fairway where you can have a second shot. All right, so we're coming up on this tree. It's going to divide the hole, and you can decide to go left or right. Now, I almost always want to go right and take this right path because it's a more natural backhand, plus the terrain is flatter, so you don't get as much funkiness if you go left. So I'm aiming for this side, or even just landing right in this area here so that I've got a clean shot around. The problem is because of the ground slopes, and if you hit the tree, your disc is going to want to go this way, especially if you're a right-handed backhand thrower. It's going to trail this way. And mine, just like this guy here, ended up just about there, so that I'm cut off enough that I can't make it around the corner and get any kind of shot to the basket. Fortunately, I had thought about what happens if it lands here in practice, and I pulled out my disc and worked on a shot from this area right here, exactly almost where I was, throwing a forehand with my deflector. Found out that was the best shot. Just throw it up extra stable and let it fall back to the basket. And so one of the things when you're practicing is practice the what ifs, especially if there's something, terrain, there's some kind of design going on the course that your disc may end up there if you don't get a good shot. That's the place you need to practice a lot, because you're going to probably find yourself there. And so you're planning to try to rein in the chaos by already know. When I got here, I was like, oh, I know exactly what to do. I grabbed my deflector, I stepped up, I said, I know the gap I need to hit up there. There's a slot up there that I need to hit. And I just threw to that slot and let it fall right to the basket, and was able to make the putt for a birdie. And so the fact that I'd already planned it out, what if it went wrong here, gave me a lot of peace in knowing I know the shot for this. And that's just helpful. All right, so now we've got hole 18, and this is normally the finishing hole, but because we had shotgun start, this was about halfway through. But here's the other thing you don't think about when you're preparing for tournaments. We had a 4-card backup on this hole right here. Because 17 and 18 are so treacherous, people are taking their time just getting through it. They're losing strokes, they're spending a lot of time scrambling. So there was a big backup on this hole. And so also, it was a Christmas parade. So back past the basket, this is a par 4, there were parade floats, there were bands playing. I said the only thing that was missing was like fireworks and somebody just running around on fire. There was so much distractions going on down there. Plus, we just had guys lined up back and forth across here waiting to play because it was just crowded. But one of the reasons why this is so tough is, I'm going to show you right up here, this gap right here is about 8 feet across. And it's got all, you can see how thick these woods are. And a lot of people are trying to get out all the way down through that and all the way down. So they're trying to throw something, because to be honest, distance-wise, you can get to the basket almost if you get a good rip. The problem is the terrain, the trees, everything goes out and fades down to the left, which is OB in the parking lot. But you also got to miss everything. And so many people, they try to get that perfect shot with a flip up or whatever, and it ends up catching those trees and just rocketing into the left or right. I go with a mid-range. I go with my trusty vector, just throwing it right down the middle for a couple reasons. One is I can trust it. I just need to throw a simple shot down the middle. But also, because it's a mid-range, it's not going to ricochet and dive as deep into the woods if I catch something. Those faster discs are going to hit on edge. These guys are going to hit on edge, and especially if you catch over to the right here, they're just going to hit those trees and go rocketing this way. Same thing if they catch on the inside there and they catch the tree right, they're just going to bury deeper, whereas mid-range will not go as deep and get as much trouble. Now granted, I lose a little distance, but if I throw this right, I still get over the hill out into the open for an easy upshot for a birdie. So I'm just trying to go, how can I eliminate as many possibilities to screw up and stay in my game? So I just take a mid-range. And throw it down the middle. It's not sexy, but it'll get you strokes. Okay, so this is about where I landed, and I didn't quite get all the way out. I caught a little cabbage right at the end and dropped right here. And so my throw choices were a little limited, but the number one thing I want to do was get down towards the basket, but make sure I don't hit OB in the parking lot. And so I decided to go, I was going to try to throw a mid-range because that's kind of distance-wise, it's pretty comfortable. But one of the things that I'm trying to work on is not throwing what I should throw, but what I'm feeling comfortable throwing. And the thing with the mid-range is I was going to have to throw it pretty good. And I decided, let me club up one. Let me go up from a mid-range, and just pulled out my trusty Thunderbird. Knew that it was going to fight back, especially with this hill. I might tend to pull it over to the left. I tend to, if I get excited, pull over to the left, and I wanted something that was going to fight hard back and get back to the basket. So if I missed, I'd miss uphill versus downhill into the parking lot. And so I was able to just step up and get a good rip on it. I just missed a tree by about that much down the way there, but was able to just slide on up for an easy drop-in birdie, and I was quite happy with it. But the main thing that started it all out was just staying in the middle of the fairway with a nice, easy mid-range. And took a lot of strokes. These 2 holes, I got a lot of strokes on, folks, because I just played down the middle. And that's some of what it's all about.
Well, there you go, folks. Thanks for watching all the way through if you managed to make it all the way to here. I know it was a long one, but I just didn't feel like cutting it up into multiple sections. Maybe I'll try something else next week. But also, in case you noticed, I had 2 different camera setups for both courses, and let me know if you like one over the other. I think I know which one I like, but I was trying a couple different setups to see which one works better, more efficient. And so anyway, yeah, just leave a comment which one you like the better. Like the better, that's good English. Anyway, that's it. I'm going to shut up because it's been way too long. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you out on the course.